Hello everyone and welcome back to my opinion. And what a thrilling game we saw yesterday with the Chennai Super Kings securing their fifth title win. I've watched cricket since 2011 and I've more consciously been able to witness CSK's latest three title wins, being 2018, 2021 and 2023. And I think out of those three wins, this win, even though every win is great, I think this win felt the best with the narrative going into the game, with how long the game took to be played, and with the events that transpired in the game. This has to be the best final I've witnessed until now, and I think out of the three CSK title wins that I've more consciously been able to witness, I'd say this one felt the best. So really well done to them and well done to both teams as well. The Gujarat Titans have had an outstanding season, and these two teams were the best teams in the competition and deservedly played the final yesterday. And on the day, CSK got the job done and have secured their fifth title win. So well done to both teams and well done to CSK as well, and I'll get onto my review. Regarding the 11s of both teams, starting off with CSK, an expectedly unchanged 11 from their previous game. And in my preview video, I'd suggested that they could go with the option of opening with Rahane and Gaikwad, leaving out Devon Conway and playing Mitchell Santner as an extra bowler who could bat at number 8 as well. And while I give my views on the events that transpired in this innings or this game, I will also be referring at times to the suggested 11 that I brought up in my preview video and at the start of this one. And for the Gujarat Titans, also an unchanged 11. And since they were batting first like they did in the previous game, they didn't have to make any changes. And MS Dhoni won the toss and chose to field first. Now, as I brought up in my preview video and before as well, I thought this was a huge gamble taken by MS Dhoni in this game. We've seen in this ground that teams batting first have fared better than teams chasing. And I think with how the Gujarat Titans played against the Mumbai Indians and against SRH as well, we've seen times where apart from the game against CSK in the first game of the season where they chased down that 179 target, it's been a case where they've batted first and won games at this venue. And I thought CSK, if they did bat first, it would have provided them a huge advantage and they could have gone on to win the game. I thought this would have been a harder thing to do as with the option that MS Dhoni took at the toss. And I think in terms of the 11 that I suggested, I thought that if they wanted to go with the 11 that they went with today in a particular situation, I thought the top three of Ruturaj Gaikwad, Devon Conway and Ajinkya Rahane would be far more suited to bat first than bat second, chasing a decent score, and they were chasing quite a good score in 15 overs in the end. And I thought at this venue, we've seen that not losing wickets in the power play is crucial in getting a good score at the end. And I thought that with the top three they've got the solidity to get through that power play phase before going on. And that's why if they were chasing down a decent score, which they were, I thought would Devon Conway get bogged down in the second innings. Ajinkya Rahane at number 3, you would say he's a much better player opening the batting, especially on a track like we saw yesterday where there was a bit of grip for the spinners, even though it probably wasn't as much after the rain fell, but that it still was dry. And I think you'd rather someone like an Ambati Rayudu or a Shivam Dube bat at 3 or 4. With Rahane batting at 3, which I thought he would do so, they couldn't do that. And so it would have displaced the other players in the lineup while you've got these two players that would they be suited to perform the roles they were meant to play on the day? You wouldn't have thought so. So that's why I thought not only was playing Devon Conway and Rahane at opening and 3 respectively going to be a testing in certain situations, but with CSK choosing to bowl first, it effectively materialized the opposite of what I wanted to materialize on the day. So that was on that, and now getting on to this first batting innings. The Gujarat Titans openers walked out to bat, and we've seen at this venue that during the first 6 overs as a batting side, while the ball is doing a bit, if you can minimize wicket loss and provide a foundation for the rest of the innings, then you've done your job. I think from a bowling perspective, the overs bowled respectively by Deepak Chahar and Tushar Deshpande meant that the Gujarat Titans could not get any momentum in the first 2 overs of this innings. I thought the moment that set them off on their way was during the third over, or took place during the third over of the game, where Wriddhiman Saha got a boundary off Deepak Chahar, and in response to this, MS Dhoni stood up to the stumps. Now, I know we've seen him do this before, for example, in the second encounter against the Mumbai Indians, where Rohit Sharma, in response to that, played a poor shot and got out. Despite the fact that he did that in that instance, I don't think this is generally a move that phases batsmen. Keepers do this, or captains tell keepers to do this in order to limit batsmen's foot movement. But I think whenever this happens, the batsman is winning the battle. And we saw 2 or 3 balls after MS Dhoni chose to stand up to the stance, was hit for 4s, I think. And then he went back to stand in his usual position. So that moment was the one that set the Gujarat Titans off. And in the end, they got to 62 without loss in 6 overs, the highest power play score in an IPL final. And in the previous game, they got to 50 without loss. And that set them off from that foundation, set them off to get what they got. I didn't think they'd get that kind of a score in this game, and I didn't think they needed to get that kind of a score in this game. And they got an even better start after the first 6 in this game, and a wicket was needed by CSK. The first wicket to fall was that of Shubman Gill on the last ball of the 7th over. An outstanding delivery from Ravindra Jadeja and a brilliant bit of glove work from MS Dhoni. The reason why I think the stumping could be affected this quickly, I think 0.12 seconds, is because his gloves were right next to the stumps when collecting the ball. The ball also kind of fell into his gloves when it was right next to the stumps. And while he was collecting the ball, he was getting ready to affect the stumping, and he did exactly that. So a great bit of work by MS Dhoni, something we've seen pretty much a lot of times when he's standing behind the stumps. But with the speed that he did that in yesterday's game, I think the reason why he was able to do it is because of the accuracy of the delivery, as well as where his gloves were when he was preparing to take the pills off. So that's on that. And Shubman Gill was dismissed for a very good 39 of 20, giving his side a good start. And I didn't get the move that followed from the Gujarat Titans, where they did this even in the previous game. Now, Sai Sudarshan, even though he proved me wrong today in this game, I thought he usually would walk out to bat if the openers had been, with one of the openers had been dismissed during the power play. Now in both these games, you're 50 without loss, and even better this game, you're 62 without loss. So I didn't get the fact that rather than sending out someone like a Vijay Shankar, who's in the form of his life right now, he's been ever since he scored the 3 centuries in the last 4, I think, first-class games. And instead of sending a player like him, who whenever he's walked out to bat has been very good, you send a Sai Sudarshan where, yes, he's a good player, but for the majority of the time he'll score that 120 odd strike rate, and we have seen him do that whenever he's walked out to bat this time, apart from when he accelerated to it. So I didn't get that move at all. And after that point in time, Sai Sudarshan was on 20 off 17, Wriddhiman Saha also, where he didn't go at a... Yes, he was going at a good rate, but I didn't think he was hurting CSK being there at that point in time. And I thought CSK didn't need to get a wicket for a while, considering, like I said in my preview video, David Miller, if he is to bat, he takes 10 deliveries or so before he starts accelerating nowadays. And if you've got a case where he walks out later, if he does walk out to bat, then you're not really using him how you should be using him. And you've got power hitters to follow, where Vijay Shankar could be that bridge between the top 2 and the other power players in the side. So that is on that. So I didn't understand them sending out Sai Sudarshan to bat, but like he did in the previous game, the middle over phase, they got to a decent platform where they then could go. And when Wriddhiman Saha was dismissed for 54, that was a turning point in Sai Sudarshan's innings, where he got 2 sixes off the last over of Mahesh Deekshana, and from being 20 off 17, he scored 76 runs in 30 deliveries, a dimension of his game that we hadn't seen at all in the IPL. Yes, we've seen in first-class cricket recently, where him and Jagadish really have done some great things, but in the IPL, we hadn't seen that in the few innings that he had played. And yeah, I think this was an outstanding knock from him, proved everyone wrong, including me. And yeah, I mean, I didn't expect him to be the one to take the game away from CSK at that point in time, but he did exactly that. Hardik Pandya, 21 of 12, good from him as well, like he was in the previous game. And 214 for 4. I'd say 30 runs above par. So CSK really had a lot to do in that chase. regarding the bowling figures, you've got, I think the spinners, none for 36 and 4 and 1 for 38 in their 4, did a great job. Unfortunately for them, Tushar Deshpande, after bowling such a good first over, didn't have a great day in this game. None for 56 in his 4. Matisha Patyana also, you saw in the previous game against the Gujarat Titans where he tried a delivery where he was bowling shorter and wider, and I didn't understand why he was doing that. I thought in that game he was veering away from his strengths. In this game he tried to bowl a Yorker, but it was either a full toss or a half volley. And so he also went for runs, 2 for 44 in his 11, a bowler that's been the best death bowler in this competition. And every bowler has their bad day, and since he was someone that until the previous game in qualifier 1 didn't have a bad day at all, then and even the one day where he went for 12 and 0 was because of edges against the Rajasthan Royals. So he's been that good this season. So in a case where you haven't had a bad day at all, unfortunately the one bad day you would have, it may be in an important game like this. So yeah, that is on that. And this is where, had CSK played the extra spinner in Mitchell Santner, and if they had batted first, I thought those two things were something they did miss out on watching the first innings. I think with how well the spinners bowled, I think someone like a Mitchell Santner would have done well in this game. And I thought MS Dhoni would have bowled Moeen Ali when Sai Sudarshan was batting earlier on in his innings, especially when he was on 20 of 17. He didn't do that. He hasn't bowled Moeen Ali too often this season. And in both the games against the Gujarat Titans, in the first game of the season and in qualifier 1, he didn't bowl him when I thought he could have done. In the previous game, the bowlers managed things so they didn't have to. But I thought in this game, he should have bowled Moeen Ali, and he didn't do that. So, some strategical errors from MS Dhoni. I didn't think it was also a great thing from him to win the toss and choose to bowl first. I was quite surprised when he did that. And overall, I thought this was going to be quite an effort needed from CSK to get the job done. 3 balls into the second innings, the rain arrived, and there was a mid-innings performance of about half an hour or so. Even though these performances are a part of the IPL, whether they be taking place in the first game or in the final, I think when the threat of rain was looming over this game, with the previous game being washed out, a half an hour slot taken up rather than resuming the game earlier wasn't necessary, despite the fact that these performances are a part of the IPL. And since Monday was a bank holiday for most, I thought this game could have been started at 3:30 p.m. local time, reducing the threat of rain, and the rain would have only kicked in after the game was finished. So rescheduling and better usage, more efficient usage of time would have made things better, I think. And in terms of the game being resumed, there were 3 scenarios. A 5-over game would mean CSK would have to get 66 runs to win, and the Gujarat Titans would have been fancying their chances in that situation. As a CSK fan, I wanted the 10-over scenario where 123 runs were needed, and I think CSK would have been fancying their chances in that situation. Now, with the third scenario that was chosen, 171 in 15 overs, it's a case where, from the Gujarat Titans' perspective, if you get 214 in 20 overs and they reduce the score by 43 and 5 overs, that makes things drastically harder for the chasing side, and you've got more scoreboard pressure to play with as a bowling side even before you bowl a ball. So I think from that angle, things went quite in favour of the Gujarat Titans in that angle. And for CSK, the quite a bit of rain around meant that the ball didn't move as much in the second innings as it would have done maybe if the rain wasn't there. And I think that the outfield was also quite quick, meaning that CSK, well, at first it seemed like quite a tough chase. With 171 and 15, you'd think with runs and overs it would be, but it wasn't as improbable as it may have seemed. So I thought both sides had things going for them going into the resumption of the second innings. And to start things off, a player that I thought, well, in my view, I don't know if I would have played him or not, and that was also with concerning the alternative 11, I would have left him out of the side, and he really proved me wrong, as did Sai Sudarshan. Devon Conway, 47 of 25, was given the man of the match for his performance, and had he not played the way he had done, then his start really set things off for CSK, even though some quiet overs were kind of gone through after his dismissal. I think his start meant that CSK would be there and thereabouts in terms of the required run rate and really flipping the switch at any time, capitalizing on certain overs at any time. So I think a fantastic innings from him. Was he in his comfort zone when playing this innings? No, he wasn't. But yeah, I think really, especially when you're not in your comfort zone when doing this kind of a thing, I think it's a fantastic innings from him, and he really did prove me wrong in this game. And once again, strategical errors from the Gujarat Titans. I've spoken about the second over reprieve so many times now, and if you want to see the occasions that I've listed, you could watch the previous videos where I've talked about it. But I think I expected Hardik Pandya to provide this reprieve once again with him bowling the second over rather than Josh Little. And what you thought after the first over, yes, 10 runs were got off the Mohammad Shami over, but even in the first ball after the resumption, a leading edge where Rudraj Gaikwad faced Mohammad Shami on the fourth ball of the over. So after that over finished, there wasn't that as much of a confidence to say there was still a bit of uncertainty, even though 10 runs off that over was still got. Now, what Hardik Pandya's over did was that it gave them, I think, more confidence in terms of they got to set that platform, and 14 runs given in the second over the game in the manner that they were got meant that doubt and maybe there the CSK fans kind of was dissipated, I thought, expectedly. So, and yeah, I mean, I would have bowled Josh Little in the second over, like I said, even before this game, but I knew he wouldn't make that call. And when Josh Little did bowl, yes, he bowled well for the few deliveries until the last ball of his first over, but had there been slightly a bit more movement around, yes, not as much if the rain hadn't fallen like it did, but still some movement would have been there up front if he bowled the second over, and it was an opportunity missed by Hardik Pandya once again. Another call that I didn't get was bowling Rashid Khan in the fourth over. Now, in the game against CSK in Qualifier 1, we saw that both Rashid Khan and Noor Ahmed bowled an overreach in the power play, which I didn't get at all. And had a pacer bowled that other over, Rashid Khan could have been introduced slightly later to bowl in tandem maybe with Noor Ahmed, and the things could have been different. So I thought once again that wasn't a great call from Hardik Pandya. The first wicket to fall for CSK was Rudraj Gaikwad, 26 off 16. I think he was starved of a bit of strike after the first over, but still, yeah, him and Devon Conway got his team off to a start. And Noor Ahmed was outstanding in this game, 2 for 17 in 3. I mean, in the end, it was a case where there were very few deliveries that you could even think about attacking. They played him out, and rightly so. I thought he was fantastic, and the reason why they could play him out, like I said, it shows how important Devon Conway's innings was, because that innings of almost 12 and over in terms of the strike rate meant that even some quiet overs, which there were quite a few quiet overs in this innings, it meant that CSK could still be there and thereabouts in terms of managing the required run rate. So really well done from him and Noor Ahmed as well for creating that kind of a pressure with the way that he bowled. And yeah, I mean, then Devon Conway was also dismissed of the bowling of Noor Ahmed, and Shivam Dube walked out to bat alongside Ajinkya Rahane at number 4. Now, we saw Rahane bat at 4 in the previous game, which I didn't agree with at all. In this game, I think the thinking was Shivam Dube trying to hit the spinners and Rahane against the pace. And you saw when the bit of extra pace was provided by Josh Little, 2 outstanding shots from Rahane that went for 6. And Shivam Dube at first, I think, was 12 off 11. I'll get to him in a bit where he got those 2 sixes. But I thought 2 key moments in the game were the last 2 deliveries of Rashid Khan's second over, and I think his third over as well. So the 2 boundaries, the 2 deliveries that were bowled down the leg side meant that a good over turned into a 13-run over where Ajinkya Rahane got 2 boundaries. And in his third over, the 2 sixes down the gun from Shivam Dube really brought things down to 38 off 18. And yeah, I think that was a vital 2 sixes at that point in time, because if those 6s hadn't been got, CSK may have had to chase more than 15 to the over in the last 3. And I thought on Shivam Dube, the reason why he couldn't get the boundaries first up was because rather than going straight down the ground, I thought he was at times going to a mid-wicket, and therefore he couldn't get the runs and he only got singles. the moment he got opportunity to hit straight down the ground, for example, the ball that was bowled slightly outside off by Rashid Khan, and also the case where Dube went down long on as well in the next delivery. I think those 2 sixes were important for him and brought the score down to the required runs down to 38 of 18. And in the first ball, the next over, expectedly so, when the pace was reduced, you saw Rahane wasn't going too well against the spin, and when the pace was reduced in the form of Mohit Sharma, Ajinkya Rahane was dismissed for a very good 27 of 13. And I thought in the next few deliveries, a player who was playing his last game in the IPL, and I think with all the narrative around whether this would be Dhoni's last game, I was quite sad that this would be Raidu's last IPL game. And the rhetoric is that he hasn't had a good season, but like I've said before, he hasn't been utilised well enough to really get those bigger runs. You saw 17 of 9 or 10 in the previous game, an important knockout in this game. 19 of 80. Really, I thought he changed the game towards that last phase where yes, Shivam Dube's 2 sixes were important, but his 19 of 8 brought things really on the doorstep of victory for CSK. And I thought while he played he scored some 3 very good boundaries. I thought Mohit Sharma blatantly didn't bowl to his field. It was a leg side field and he bowled kind of half volleys and a short one that went for 6 as well over the cover region. So I thought he blatantly didn't bowl to his field, and he got 2 wickets at the end, yes, but I thought even more runs could have been taken off his over. Where the ball that MS Dhoni faced was hit to David Miller. Got some good contact, but I thought maybe he could have lifted it slightly upwards. And at that point in time, I think Dhoni walked out of bat considering he could, since there were no spinners to bowl at that point in time, he could really have finished the game off for CSK, and he would have been disappointed that he was dismissed off a delivery that should have gone for 4. And I think 20 of 10 or 20 of 12 was the resulting score to get when Jadeja walked out of bat after hitting a single. And from that point in time, Mohammad Shami and Mohit Sharma in the first 4 balls of an innings did an outstanding job in making it to 10 of 2. I thought Mohammad Shami's over would go for runs like it did earlier on in the season against the Rajasthan Royals, where he bowled the 19th over. But in this case, he only gave a few runs. He was fantastic in his last over. And overall, none for 29 in his 3 when you're having to defend a score which is almost a 12 and over. It's a fantastic effort. And Mohit Sharma nailed the first 4 deliveries in the last over, 10 off 2. And Ravinder Jadeja to hold his nerve, get the 6 off the half volley. And a risky delivery to try out. A leg stump Yorker, he tried it, went as a full toss, went for 4 with fine leg up in the circle. And a memorable victory for CSK. The Gujarat Titans, while they didn't do much wrong today, as you've seen, some tactical calls here and there go a long way in determining the outcome of the game. And unfortunately, Hardik Pandya did get a few things wrong. Mohit Sharma in his second over bowled not to his field, and I thought it was a risky option in the last ball of the game. So, well done to GT as well for what they've done, for a memorable win for CSK. And even Ambati Raidu said after the game that I think he'd remember this for a long time, as you think he would. And on Ambati Raidu, I've said this before, the biggest IPL legend in my view, now his 6th title, level with Rohit Sharma as being the most successful player in the IPL. And while the aggregates say a story as well, I think the iconic knocks that he's played, including this one where his team have most needed it, the 30 off 10 against the Mumbai Indians as well in 2014 in that heist, probably the best game of cricket I've ever seen. And I think even the innings in the time in 2018 where the aggregate runs that he got in that season got him an India call-up as well once again. So he's been an outstanding player in the IPL. I could say more about him, but I mean, yeah, I really wish him well in his future. And MS Dhoni, after the game, the case where he kind of meant or suggested that he could be back for another season, and if he is, I'd be very happy to see that. So overall, a great win for the Chennai Super Kings. And in a case where a lot of things didn't go to plan, I thought Dhoni should have won the toss and chose to bat first. He didn't. I thought he should have bowled Moeen Ali to Sai Sudarshan. He didn't. They gave 30 runs more than the past score. And yet, in the end, even he himself, when he should have finished off the game, he was dismissed on the first ball. And in the end, CSK somehow managed to win the game and deserved to win. So yeah, really well done to both teams. Well done to CSK. And yeah, now this great tournament has come to a close. I don't know whether I'll post more videos on the IPL since there are a few days to go until the World Test Championship final starts. I may do a preview of the final a couple of days before it starts. So I may be able to post some IPL videos. Yeah, but stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Share it with your friends. Remember, this is my opinion. What's yours?